Hey everybody, welcome in. I'm Chief Meteorologist Eric Snitil. This is our second weather workshop that we have done this week, so we appreciate all of you tuning in. The kiddos especially. Again, this is mainly elementary school and middle school kids that we're going to be talking to here, but today's topic is hail. I want to start this off with the comment section on these Facebook Lives is going to be our best friend. So if you or your kids have any questions that you want answered with any of this, be sure to comment those. We'll answer a lot of these, particularly toward the end of the video. We've got a hands-on experiment we're going to show you to be able to almost make your own cool hailstones from home, with the help of mom and dad, mind you. But toward the end of this video, we'll be able to do some back and forth. We'll answer a lot of those questions. And make sure when you comment, by the way, let me know the name of who's asking the question, where you're from, and we'll give you a quick shout out with that. So let's get into this. Has any of you ever seen hail before? I've seen it probably, a good dozen times. And a lot of folks who have seen hail, it looks kind of like this. They are teeny tiny little hailstones. And you know, we actually measure hail using common things that a lot of us have around the house. And in many cases, Kevin, if we can kind of get a little tighter on this, we use coins, for example. So you can have dime-sized hail. You got a penny here. Now, a quarter is a bigger one. A quarter-size hailstone is about 1 inch in diameter. And at that point, this is what we call severe hail. This is when we start getting in on severe thunderstorm warnings. Hail, when it gets to be about a quarter size, is the kind that can actually end up doing damage. And yes, they get much bigger than just quarter size. Now, I have to pull this up. There's going to be a lot of folks watching this video from different parts of the country. If you're watching us from Western New York, oh yeah, we get hail here. These are the reports from last year alone. That's the state of New York. We had hail. You can see where most of the hail ends up falling, and that's going to be across the plains. Now, we're going to get into what causes hail and why that is the case, but there is a reason that this part of the country experiences a lot of severe weather, hail included. I'll ask you this question. There were only 2 states last year that had 0 reports of severe hail. Anybody know what those 2 states might be? I'll give you a couple of seconds with this. Those 2 states were Hawaii and Alaska, but for 2 very different reasons. Hawaii didn't get any hail because it's too warm. There's no cold air aloft. Alaska didn't get any hail because they just don't get very many thunderstorms because a lot of times it is too cold. But everybody else, every other state there, minus Hawaii and Alaska, end up seeing some kind of hail of at least 1 inch. Now, this is what hail is capable of doing. We had a hailstorm a few years back in Alabama that did a number to a car dealership in North Alabama. This was baseball-sized hail. This is what it does to the windshield. So imagine you've got a hailstone about this size, and it's just solid ice that is falling down from that cloud at probably a good 60 or 70 miles an hour. That will obviously do a lot of damage. Some of you may be asking, what is the biggest hailstone that has ever been recorded? This is a hailstone shot that was roughly about softball size. Now, I've got my handy-dandy ruler here. The world record hailstone was about 8 inches big. Now, that really doesn't help you a whole lot. We want to try to put this into perspective, and I've got something that is exactly 8 inches. Yep. This, my friends, was the world record hailstone. It was the size of a volleyball, and I have to do this. This is courtesy of our good friend Madeline Brown. Yes, that is Thad Brown's daughter. She supplied us with this volleyball. Now just think about this. This is almost 2 pounds of ice to be able to be this size. It would be falling from the cloud at more than 100 miles an hour. The kind of damage that this would do, obviously that can be deadly when you have hail of that size that is falling from the ground. So let's get into this here real quick. How does this happen? Now, you obviously have to have some kind of a thunderstorm. In the vast majority of hail cases, this is a thunder and lightning kind of event. So we've got our cloud here. Here's the important thing to be able to get some hail going. We're going to draw a black line on this map. You know what that is? That is our freezing line. Everything above that black line, we're dealing with ice. Everything is frozen. Everything below that black line, that's the warm part of the cloud. This is where you're going to have a lot of liquid raindrops. Temperatures are well above freezing. And this is really important when you think about how this is going to end up working. We've got all these raindrops that are forming in the base of the cloud. There they are. We're going to throw 6 of them on this here just to kind of keep an eye on what these 6 are going to end up doing. They're in the warm part of the cloud here, so these are just raindrops, no problem, no ice, no hail. But they're rising into that cloud in the updraft. And look at where they're going. See what they just did here? They went from the warm side to the cold side of that cloud. Now, some interesting things start happening. Now that air is well below freezing. Those liquid raindrops, what are they going to do? What happens when you fill up ice cube trays with water? You put it in the freezer for a few hours. You open the freezer door. What do you got? You now have ice. The same thing is happening in the cloud. Those raindrops are now freezing. Now we've got these teeny tiny little chunks of ice, but they're little, they're babies. There's no problem there. You know, we're not going to have any big issues with that. But a lot of things are happening in that cloud. You see how these now little tiny ice balls are shaking around? They're getting blown around that cloud all over the place, left, right, and even more importantly, up and down. All of the while, it's getting bombarded with more rain, water droplets, even something we call supercooled water droplets. You know what that is? Those are raindrops that are below freezing, but they're not ice yet. They're just waiting to become ice. They're still liquid. But they're running into these little ice pellets that we've got in there, and they are causing them to grow. Sometimes these little ice balls, they end up falling in the cloud, and guess what happens there? They go back from the cold, they go back above freezing. Now they're running into a ton of rain again, and all of that water is collecting on the outside of that ice. It gets back into the updraft, and boom, back up into the cold, but now it's had more water coated on it. You know what it does then? That water freezes into another layer, and this just keeps going over and over and over again. It keeps collecting more of those water droplets on it, and that ball of ice ends up growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And it will go from our penny to our nickel to our quarter, maybe to a tennis ball or a baseball, or in the worst case scenario, the size of a volleyball. Eventually, we've got something on this planet called gravity. It's the same thing that's keeping me standing right here at this podium, why I can't jump up and hit my head on the ceiling. Gravity is pulling me down. At some point, these hailstones get so big and so heavy that the updraft of that thunderstorm can't keep it floating. It's so heavy, it's got to come on down. And once that happens, that's where your hail ends up hitting the ground, and you end up getting some big problems in a lot of cases. Let's do this, Kevin. Take a walk with me. I'm going to walk over to our little experiment set here. I want to show you a way that you can make your own hailstone at home. Now, we're going to say here right off the top, you're going to need some help with this with mom and dad out of this one. This will be our little hands-on experiment here. So here's what I've got at my podium. What we're going to do is we're going to take some candle wax. And a lot of folks are going to have candles at home. You can use that, or you can just go to the store and you can buy some cheap generic candle wax. And what we want to do here is we want to melt this down. So what we've got here in this little pod is, we're using water in this example, but we'll kind of pretend that this is clear candle wax that we've got in this pot. We're going to take a little confection candy that we've got. Kind of looks like a raindrop, doesn't it? And this is basically how this starts. It starts off as a little raindrop. And grab a stick, too. See what I'm going to do? We're going to put the stick on the bottom of our pretend raindrop. This is going to serve as the core, as the base of our hailstone. Now the fun part gets to start. So Katie and I were up doing this last night for a while, and Katie actually had some fun. She got it cut on her finger trying to do this, playing around with some other things. But what we had were 3 pots here of different colored candle wax. And all we're going to do is we're going to take our core and we're going to dip it in the candle wax. All right, so we get it in there. Got it off my stick. There we go. Get it back up. Now we got a little layer of candle wax on this. And all it takes is, just got to blow it a little bit. Make sure that all of that wax dries. It'll take just about 10 or 15 seconds. Once it dries, you're going to do the same thing, but with a different color. So we got a different pot, we'll say, over here, and it's a different color. And now we're going to dip it again. Just like that. Do the same thing, blow on it, and let it harden. And keep on dipping. What we're doing out of this is we're going to make layers of different candle wax, and it's all going to be different colors. So eventually, you're going to end up starting to watch your pretend candle grow. This was after, I would say, probably a good 30 or 40 dips out of that candle wax. We've now got ourselves somewhere between a golf ball and a tennis ball sized hailstone, and it's all made of candle wax. Now eventually you're going to get it big enough that we're going to start getting something like this. Now we're talking pure tennis ball. Now here's where this is cool, all right? So if you get mom and dad to help you here, we're going to slice this in half, and this is what you're going to get. You're going to look like something like that. Now, what does that remind you of? Does it kind of look like an onion? If you ever cut an onion open, you see you've got layers of that onion. This, my friends, is exactly how a hailstone would look if you were to cut this in half. And think about this. So remember, when that hailstone in the cloud is going up and down and back and forth, it is getting coated with layers of water, and then it freezes. Then it gets coated with another layer and it freezes. So when you cut a hailstone in half, this is exactly what it's going to look like. You are going to end up with all of these different colored layers, sometimes of clear ice, sometimes the ice is cloudy, sometimes hailstones can be more jagged and spiky too. And you can make these as big as you want. This was the biggest one that Katie made here yesterday, so we got this up to about baseball sized. And look at this. Can you get that, Kevin? You almost got some of the little jaggy shards on there. Sometimes hailstones do that because you got a big hailstone core, but little smaller hailstones have ended up freezing on it, and it creates these almost spikes, if you've seen that before on a YouTube video. But when you cut these, you end up getting it to look like this, and it all depends on how many layers you're going to end up putting in there. But this is your pretend hailstone from home. And you can do that. It takes about an hour or two to be able to do all of this, and obviously you're going to need your parents' help to be able to pull this off, but this is how you make your own hailstones, and they smell really, really good in being able to do this. So that's a fun way to be able to kind of make these. All right, so that's our experiment phase of this. Let me go in here and see if we've got any questions from the kiddos. Let me back this up a little bit. I see we've got Sue. James is watching us. Candy says hello from Watertown. We've got Bill, who is joining us as well. Hey, Jonathan. Mary says hello. And we've got Priscilla, who is watching us too with our little hail experiment. So it'll take you a little bit of time, obviously, with this, and your kitchen will end up smelling pretty good by the time this is all said and done. But the kids will love this as you start to get the layer upon layer of that candle wax to be able to get this going, and it'll always be a good time. I want to mention this too. The next one of these videos that we're going to end up doing is going to be on Friday. Again, that's going to be the same time. That'll be roughly 3:08 into the afternoon. And what we're going to cover on Friday is tornadoes. And we've got this little guy here that we have built. I'll show you what we're doing with this. Some of you may have seen this before. Check that out. All you need are two 2-liter bottles, and you can make your own tornado at home. How cool is that? So this is what we're going to get to play with on Friday. So hopefully if you guys want to tune in here, 3:08 on Friday, this is going to be the next topic of conversation. Will be how to build one of these at home pretty painlessly, hopefully. Unless you're Katie, who cut her finger trying to make this. So we appreciate all of you watching this video. We're going to have this up, by the way, not only on Facebook, but I think we're going to throw this up on our website too, rochesterfirst.com. If you want the kids a quick lesson on how hail works, we've got you covered, and we will do tornadoes on Friday. In the meantime, we appreciate all of you tuning in for this. We're going to get back out of here. We got the news to do coming up in just a couple of minutes, so we'll keep these videos about 15 minutes or so, and I will see you again on Friday. See you then.